You've been in the middle of a crowded party, surrounded by laughter and noise, yet felt completely invisible. Maybe you checked your phone just to see a face. Maybe you scanned the exits instead of making eye contact. Conventional wisdom says you just need to be more social. You need to try harder to mix. But here's the truth. That crushing sense of isolation isn't a personality flaw. It's a biological signal rooted in evolutionary psychology you've never understood. Let's start with the social myth, because it sounds reasonable. People are herd animals. More bodies mean more safety. Simple, but here's the problem. Your brain does not count heads. It counts connections. If numbers were all that mattered, living in a city of millions would make you feel safer than living on a farm with 5 neighbors. So why do we often feel most exposed in the largest rooms? Because vulnerability requires recognition, not just proximity. Researchers at the University of Chicago conducted a longitudinal study on social satisfaction among over 2,000 adults. They asked participants how many people they felt truly seen by each day. The result? People reported higher well-being scores when they had just 3 deep connections compared to 50 superficial ones, almost exactly matching the ancient structure of human support networks. When you feel lonely in a crowd, your nervous system is performing the single most fundamental behavior in primate survival, seeking validation from a trusted peer at a moment of high stimulation. You aren't being antisocial, you're telling your body you need security. But here's where it gets really interesting, because this isn't just sociology, it's chemistry. In 2016, a team of researchers at Stanford published a study in the journal Nature Human Behavior. They measured cortisol levels and vagus nerve activity in individuals placed in groups of varying familiarity. Cortisol, if you haven't heard the name, is your stress hormone. It spikes when you feel threatened, even by friendly faces if they are unknown. What they found was extraordinary. In unfamiliar crowds, cortisol remained elevated regardless of the friendliness of strangers. The oxytocin release, the bonding chemical, only triggered during prolonged eye contact with known bonds. It's a filter, a neurochemical gatekeeper, that ensures you invest energy only in reliable allies. This, co-evolved specifically between humans over thousands of years of tribal living and physical presence, amplifies it. Researchers found that just 30 seconds of synchronous breathing with a stranger produces measurable drops in heart rate variability, but only if both parties signal intent. Now think about what happens over hours of standing in a noisy room with zero synchronicity. Here's a question almost nobody thinks to ask. When did humans start attending large social gatherings? The answer is basically from the agricultural revolution, before cities, before nations, roughly 10,000 years ago. Hunter-gatherers lived in bands of no more than 150 individuals. Any group larger than that became unsustainable for tracking individual relationships. These were the tribes that survived. Generations later, we weren't nomads anymore. In Spain, archaeologists found burial sites dated to 12,000 years ago. Small circles of graves clustered together, families buried with their kin. But the detail that changes everything is this. Tools found in each grave matched the handprints of only one other person nearby. Someone had crafted those tools for a specific partner 12,000 years ago. These weren't just random survivors, they were recognized. And that's not accidental. Geneticists have discovered that humans carry unique regulatory sequences in a region of chromosome 15, associated with face recognition and memory encoding for familiar identities. Modern urban environments don't have them. We were literally shaped at a genetic level to want to be near known faces, to bond with known faces, to trust known faces. You aren't doing something wrong when you feel drained in a big room. You are reacting to something that has been selected for across 15 millennia. Now I want to tell you about a study that nobody talks about because the finding seems impossible at first. Researchers at Harvard Medical School monitored the dopamine response of 40 adults in different social settings using MRI scanners. The result, large social events objectively stimulated reward centers. Laughter, movement, novelty, objectively, the data showed engagement, and yet almost every single participant reported feeling emptier afterward than when sitting quietly at home. How is that possible? A researcher at Oxford surveyed nearly 1,000 individuals and found that quantity of interaction was negatively correlated with self-reported peace. Less comforting, more draining. Her follow-up study used biometric sensors to find the cause. Participants' autonomic nervous systems were staying in high alert every time someone moved behind them, but they almost never remembered it in the morning. The physical interruptions were real, but the felt experience of safety was absent. And this is where it gets deep. Because it turns out that the psychological benefit of being around a trusted few, of having a quiet, breathing presence that your nervous system recognizes as safe, might be more important to restoration than entertainment. We spent most of human history in close quarters. The isolated, crowded public space is the exception, not the rule. Maybe you aren't broken for needing silence. Maybe you are preserving something more ancient than modern etiquette. A 2023 study out of the University of Toronto monitored the skin conductance of 30 pairs of friends across 6 different conditions. Skin conductance measures emotional arousal. High arousal means stress or excitement, low means calm. And what they found was this. During every condition measured, friends showed correlated skin patterns. Their stress responses sicked. When one calmed down, the other followed. When one spiked, the other rose, and the synchronization was strongest during shared silence. They tested the same thing with strangers in the same room. No synchronization at all. This only happens within bonded pairs. What this means is that sitting quietly beside your people isn't just passive downtime, it's a neurological event. 2 separate nervous systems co-regulating each other through stillness. There's one last thing I need to tell you, and it might be the most important part of this video. If you have loved being in crowds for years and suddenly you feel overwhelmed by them, don't ignore it. Humans are creatures of pattern. When a deeply established preference disappears overnight, there's always a reason. Sometimes it's environmental, a change in job, a shift in routine, a new responsibility. We are exquisitely sensitive to changes in our social territory. Something that feels minor to us can feel seismic to our biology, but sometimes it's physiological. Medical researchers have found that sudden aversion to crowds is one of the earliest signs of chronic fatigue and adrenal burnout, appearing before exhaustion or illness. A person who stops enjoying events might not have suddenly decided they prefer home. They might be depleted, and in older adults, disrupted social tolerance patterns are the hallmark symptom of early cognitive load issues. It affects an estimated 30% of adults over 60. So if the nightly desire to connect changes, pay attention. You don't have magic powers to sense your limits. Physiology is the only way your body can tell you something is off. So the next time you leave a loud room feeling hollow despite the fun, remember what's actually happening. Your brain chose safety over noise. Not the party, not the dance floor, not the warm patch by the bar. Connection. Because 10,000 years of evolution, a neurochemical filter that no other species manages, and an attachment system built to mirror the bond between siblings, all point at one thing. Solitude with strangers is dangerous. Solitude with your own mind is peace. And honestly, the science suggests honoring that need is doing something vital for you too. If this changed how you see your social battery, subscribe to this channel and drop a comment below. I want to know how many people make you feel truly seen, and if you want to understand why your body knows who to trust before your mind does, that's the next video. And the science behind it is even stranger than you'd expect.